In August of 2021, I took my first trip to Missouri and got to attend Worlds of Fun, Silver Dollar City, and numerous Branson Mountain coasters. A month later, in September, I also had the chance to visit Six Flags St. Louis as well. So now that I've gotten the chance to ride almost all of the state's roller coasters and all of the major ones, I'm excited to present to you my top 15 roller coasters in the state. For those of you who don't know, Missouri is actually one of the best US states for roller coasters. The lineup that they have on offer is truly impressive, and something I love is that all three of its major parks are spread out hours apart. Sure, this may make coaster trips in Missouri a bit more difficult to do, but it gives residents of all quarters of the state a park of their own. With that being said, I'd like to clarify that all the coasters in this list and the order I rank them in is my personal opinion. If you've been to all the parks in Missouri, don't forget to drop a comment below with your favorites in the state. Additionally, I should also mention that you will not be seeing Screamin' Eagle at Six Flags St. Louis on this list, as it was closed for my first visit. Otherwise, the only roller coasters in the state that I haven't ridden are kids coasters, which wouldn't have made the list anyways. But now that we have all this out of the way, I think we should be good to begin. These are my top 15 roller coasters in the state of Missouri. Number 15, Copperhead Mountain Coaster at Shepherd's Adventure Park. The newest roller coaster in the state of Missouri opened just this year in 2021 and is the Branson area's third alpine coaster. This one offers some incredible views at points of the ride, including a pretty scenic journey back up to the station on the lift hill. And by that description, it should be obvious that the lift hill for this ride occurs at the end of the layout rather than the beginning. Compared to other mountain coasters I've ridden, I thought Copperhead Mountain Coaster had a lot of good lateral moments, but an evident lack of airtime. But nonetheless, it was certainly worth riding, especially due to its close proximity to Silver Dollar City. Number 14, Runaway at Branson Mountain Adventure Park. The best of the three alpine coasters in Branson is an out-of-control experience, and spoiler alert, the Branson coaster did not make the list if you were wondering. The Runaway coaster was my first alpine coaster not manufactured by Wiegand and instead built by Aquatic Development Group. While it was surprisingly pretty rough, I thought the layout more than made up for it with its strong lateral Gs and abrupt moments of airtime taken at very high speeds. Per usual, this coaster also had a very scenic climb up on the lift hill, which is the cherry on top of the already fantastic experience. If you could only choose one alpine coaster in Branson, I would personally suggest that you ride this one the most. Number 13, Thunderation at Silver Dollar City. Just down the road from both of the two alpine coasters we talked about is our first coaster from a major park to make the list. This one is a very surprising aerodynamics mine train coaster. It definitely rides pretty rough, there's no sugarcoating that, but the layout is one of the most creative on any family thrill coaster out there. Unlike all the other mine trains I can think of, your lift hill is actually at the end of the ride rather than the beginning, kinda similar to Copperhead Mountain Coaster in the same city. And even with the lift hill at the end of the ride, Thunderation ends out in a bang with a large drop before the final brake run. As for the rest of the ride, you've got plenty of shockingly aggressive and fast-paced helixes and turns. I know I called this thing a family coaster before, but sometimes I struggle to decide whether or not this is a family or thrill coaster. It's actually quite intense for what you'd expect. Number 12, Timberwolf at Worlds of Fun. For the next couple of spots, we head on over to Kansas City first for a Din wooden coaster from 1989. Despite its poor reputation in the past, the ride has undergone extensive track work in recent years to help smooth out the ride. And it is obvious to me that this track work has improved the ride experience drastically because Timberwolf rides awesome. I still wouldn't say it's too smooth, but instead the perfect boundary between smooth and rough. Pair that in with a couple moments of awesome airtime and some excellent laterals as well, and Timberwolf may actually be one of my favorite classic wooden coasters I've ever ridden. Number 11, Mamba at Worlds of Fun. Slightly edging out Timberwolf is the ride's monstrous next-door neighbor in Mamba. The coaster was manufactured by Morgan and stands at a whopping 205 feet tall. With the hypercoaster heights that this ride has on offer, you traverse many large camelbacks in the first half that provide some decent but floaty airtime. Then the middle section with the helix has so much speed and actually pulls some solid positive Gs, sometimes resulting in a gray out. But my biggest issue with Mamba, and this goes for similar rides like Wild Thing at Valley Fair and Steel Force at Dorney Park, is the mid-course brake run. The brakes completely eliminate any good airtime in the second half, which judging by the endless series of airtime hills should be ending things out in a bang. I do wish I could put Mamba higher on this list, but when a large portion of the ride is lackluster, I struggle to do so. But hey, it is still a good ride at the end of the day, and that's why it made the list. Number 10, Patriot at Worlds of Fun. Built by Bolliger and Mabillard in 2006, I had heard for the longest time that Patriot was one of the less impressive inverted designs that they had built. And while I do agree with this statement, I was still quite a bit surprised by how solid the ride experience was. At times, the ride pulled some decent positive G-forces, and at others, it actually got some airtime on an invert. But my favorite thing about Patriot actually has nothing to do with either of those things, but is instead the pacing, which is oddly stronger than many other B&M inverts pacing. Now, I do wish the coaster was a bit whippier and a bit more aggressive, but I cannot deny that Patriot was a really enjoyable invert. Number 9, American Thunder at Six Flags St. Louis. The first of 2 St. Louis wooden coasters to make the list is a GCI or Great Coasters International design. And what a design that this is, with its layout flying over and under other pieces of track and supports. What holds this ride back in my opinion has less to do with the layout and more to do with the ride's scale and pacing. Because it isn't very large and a lot of the elements aren't capable of being more compact, the ride really starts to dwindle out towards the end. This is unfortunate because the endless series of Airtime hills should make for a seriously awesome ride experience. But with that being said, I still really appreciate how creatively thought out American Thunder's layout is, and I would recommend it to just about any of you guys watching this video. Even for you younger people, because this ride is not super intense and is just purely fun. Number 8, Powder Keg at Silver Dollar City. Let me start off by saying that this is a weird-ass ride. It originally opened in 1999 as a Premier Rides water coaster and has since been converted into an S&S Air launch coaster. How this was done is kind of beyond me because these two ride models are essentially polar opposites in the coaster world. But nonetheless, I think S&S did a great job with what they had to work with. The ride's launch is absolutely fantastic, and the first few hills following the launch provide some great sustained airtime. Also, the previous water coaster track gives some great sustained lateral forces, though it isn't very intense at all. Now, if there is one thing I'd knock this ride for, it's that it absolutely should be longer considering it's got a launch and a lift hill. The entire section after the lift is simply a turn, drop, helix, and brakes, and that's a pathetic second half in my opinion. I do completely understand why it's there, but I think there was so much more opportunity for the ride to end out in a bang. But hey, that's just me, and Powder Keg at the end of the day is still a fantastic launch coaster for what it's worth. Number 7, Batman the Ride at Six Flags St. Louis. I've said this once and I'll say it again, there's a common misconception in this coaster community that clones equals bad. Batman the Ride clones, unlike Boomerangs and SLCs and etc., are absolutely phenomenal clones. These B&M or Bollinger and Mabyard inverts are super compact and have some of the tightest, whippiest, and most intense elements out there. There's no question that they are short though, and the ride really is over before you know it. But I personally find it remarkable that these rides pack in so many relentless elements in such a short period of time. Next time you visit a Six Flags park with a Batman clone, which is most of them, I would strongly advise you to ignore the fact that these can be found all over the world and instead appreciate them for their insane ride experiences. Number 6, Wildfire at Silver Dollar City. Going in, I wasn't expecting Wildfire to be as fantastic as it actually was. The first point I'll make is just how amazing the ride's views are. At the top of the hill, you get a panoramic view of the surrounding landscapes right in the Ozark Mountains. But before you have time to really take in these views, you plummet down a drop with shocking airtime in the back rows and brace for an intense, fast-paced layout. As with the Batman clones, Wildfire is a pretty short ride, but not a second of this layout is wasted in my opinion. All of the elements are intense, relatively whippy, and paired together make for some awesome pacing. I personally think that Wildfire is the most underrated B&M roller coaster I've been on. Number 5, Prowler at Worlds of Fun. The following 5 coasters make my top 50 overall roller coasters list and are all incredible rides. Prowler, by far, is the best of the 7 roller coasters at Worlds of Fun and was the one attraction here that left a lasting impression on me. From the second you were off that chain lift, you were hauling the whole way through the layout until the very end. Aside from the middle section, which slows down just a little bit, the rest of Prowler is an absolute powerhouse. To be honest, I'm surprised this ride doesn't clock in even higher on this list, but I guess it just goes to show how impressive Missouri's lineup gets at the top. But alone, this makes the trek out to Worlds of Fun more than worth it. Number 4, Mr. Freeze Reverse Blast at Six Flags St. Louis. Similar to Powder Keg, these Mr. Freeze clones are incredibly bizarre launch coasters. As well as Six Flags St. Louis, you can also find this ride at Six Flags Over Texas near Dallas, and I'm actually glad this thing has numerous locations. It is one of those rare instances where the ride experience is so good that I almost wish it was cloned more than it actually is. But I completely understand why it isn't, and I'm actually surprised that it has even been cloned once, because these are very advanced, unique, and almost problematic rides. I love and admire the way they combine super unique elements like a backwards LIM launch, an inverted top hat both ways may I add, a 200 plus foot tall vertical spike, and an additional vertical booster launch, which is crazy. These elements all formulate such a disorienting shuttle coaster experience, and one that I personally can never get enough of. Whether you're in Missouri or Texas, I would highly encourage you to get out and ride this thing. Number 3, Boss at Six Flags St. Louis. Unpopular opinion alert, because I know this ride is polarizing as hell. Boss is a coaster that truly isn't for everyone, but from the 16 rides I got on it, most of which were at nighttime, this has to be one of the most intense wooden roller coasters in the world. It's not like it's got a ton of airtime, but everything else that you could be looking for in a wooden coaster is there. The first half of Boss consists of large turnarounds with low to the ground speed sections splitting them up and all providing insane lateral Gs and purely intense aggression. Then the second half stays low to the ground and builds every bit of the ride speed back up, charging till the end at a ridiculous ridiculous pace. Now there's no denying that Boss is a rough ride, but I think that's one of the things I love most about it. When you have a layout this intense and it's got that wooden coaster bite to it, that's something I can't get enough of. There is also the criticism that comes with the somewhat dull middle section, but it's over before you know it, and if anything acts as a quick breather before the second half. I would love to see this ride get RMC'd though, because I know it's something the park could largely benefit from, but I think as it stands right now, Boss is an animal. Feel free to quote me on this all you want, but this is the most underrated wooden roller coaster I've probably ever ridden. Number 2, Time Traveler at Silver Dollar City. The park's newest roller coaster opened back in 2018 and is what I'd describe as one of the best overall packages for any coaster out there. What do I mean by that? Well, you've got the theming, you've got the layout, and you've got the unique nature of the spinning vehicles, which leads me to rewind a little bit. Time Traveler was the world's first and still only one of 2 Mach Extreme spinning coasters in the world. The model is exactly as it sounds, a spinning coaster just on a much larger scale than usual. This spinning technology allows for basic elements like a vertical loop to feel completely unique and disorienting. And the best part about all of this is that you can expect a different experience every time you ride. The layout features so many cool elements and inversions, all of which you might take forwards, backwards, sideways, slantways, and you get the point. Now the cherry on top for this ride isn't just the layout, its spinning, and its terrain usage, but also its theming. Take one look at the ride station and especially the trains, which make the overall experience so much more memorable in my opinion. So depending on what you're looking for in a roller coaster, Time Traveler might actually be your favorite in the state, but there is one ride in Missouri that I'd take over it, and it can actually be found in the same park. Cue the number 1 spot. Number 1, Grand Exposition Coaster at Silver Dollar City. Come on guys, I'm kidding. Number 1 is really fire in the hole. Okay, I'll stop for real now. Number 1 is Outlaw Run at Silver Dollar City. This Rocky Mountain construction topper track wooden coaster opened in 2013 and was the first wooden roller coaster to invert riders 3 times. Today, it remains the only ride in the world to do so, and it's actually one of the few wooden coasters to go upside down at all. But the inversions, as cool as they sound, aren't even the tip of the iceberg for what makes Outlaw Run so incredible. The whole layout is tucked right into the woods of Missouri, which is the perfect environment to amplify the sense of speed. But what you do with this speed as you traverse many intense maneuvers like airtime hills, wave turns, and obviously inversions is amazing. Now, unlike a lot of coaster enthusiasts, I do not consider Outlaw Run to be one of the very best RMC creations. Maybe at nighttime, but not in the daytime. I personally find the ride to be a little too short and to be less about rapid succession, which isn't a problem in itself, but when stacked against other 10 out of 10 RMCs that do everything perfect, it's just something to be aware of. But I still think that this coaster makes up for this more than enough. The wooden coaster track especially makes the ride feel so much more different than the other RMCs, because it isn't exactly glossy smooth, but not rough either. Instead, it's just kind of the perfect in-between. So what this does is adds an out-of-control feel to the coaster, which is an added bonus to the already phenomenal layout. But in conclusion, for those of you who love intense, fast-paced roller coasters, I think Outlaw Run at Silver Dollar City is right up your alley. By now, I hope you figured out that Missouri truly is one of the best US states for roller coasters. I would personally recommend a visit to any of the parks with coasters on this list because they will all make for a pretty memorable experience, I assure you. Hey, I'm especially looking at you, Silver Dollar City. But with that being said, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and yeah, I'll see you all in the next one. Bye guys.